Welcome, welcome, my lovely brothers and sisters. Welcome to a new live book reading. And I continue with the topic about synthetic super intelligence and the transmutation of humankind. You can see a picture of the cover of the book that I'm reading from. It is a book written by Wes Penry. You can download this book for free as a PDF document on one of the and through one of the websites mentioned in the text box. And I continue with passing information onto you from topics of which my spirit finds important that you get a deeper understanding and background information of and from. All right. As we can see, we start with when do humans cease to be human? As described in the Wes Penry papers and by other researchers and authors, humankind has been genetically engineered and manipulated quite often during course of time. This is also one of the reasons why they have deliberately dumped down the human DNA. We have 12 strands of DNA, but the overlords deliberately made sure that 10 of the 12 strands of our DNA are not working, better said, that we do not have access to. And so they only gave us 2 DNA strands. And on top of that, to make sure that we even do not use the full potential of these 2 DNA strands that they have given to us, better said, have made sure that only we could function on 2 DNA strands, they created the double helix, and the double helix serves as a lock on the 2 DNA strands so that we cannot use the full potential of even the 2 DNA strands that we have access to. So this is how the overlords have made sure that we became nothing more than their living batteries and handy worker bees. So we in actuality are their slaves. We are doing the things for them because they are not in the condition anymore to do all the dirty jobs themselves. So, what do you do? Well, then you manipulate the human soul group and thus each and every human to make sure that you have enough workers to do your work. But the changes have always been in the biological body. Now we are facing something totally different, an entirely new species built as a biomechanical merge, where consciousness will be more or less substituted by super intelligent brain power. And all those people whom are sincere believers and Christians, they should wake up because they are still the ones who think that all the things are far away future ideas, but it's not. Every time these cyborgs think a thought or try to solve a problem, they will get different options and probabilities available to them directly from the supercomputer in the superbrain computer in a personal, between quotation marks, a brain upload, which is nothing more than the cloud. This is exactly what they are pushing us into. That's why we have the cloud service. This whole cloud thing already exists since the beginning of 2000. In actuality, somewhere around about 2005, the cloud service came in. Things as Dropbox and whatever came all in the picture. Well, Dropbox and all these external archives are in actuality compartments of the cloud. Um, People do not realize if they use things as Dropbox and all the other um, functionalities that are most likely the same, that they are storing information, pictures, and whatever they are storing in the cloud. This cloud serves as data center for the artificial intelligence crap. 24 hours a day, posthumans will give their power away to a super brain, controlled by a Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. So now we get a deeper understanding of this movie because this movie was in actuality telling the entire script that we are in now and that is being rolled out under our nose. So they are constantly informing us. But if you place humans on just two DNA strands, how can you then know and may be for sure that everyone gets your information and also knows what you're meaning? So this is the trick that they have done. The overlords know that there are certain laws, and by creating constructs in a way, they think that then they do not break these laws, but in actuality they do, because if they would have let us have the 12 strands DNA, then all this mess would not have happened. Better said, we would have wiped all the overlords out of existence. And that is something you need to ponder upon. We are far more than they are. They don't have 12 strands of DNA. They lack spirit. They don't even have a spirit body. We humans have 12 strands DNA. We humans have a spirit body. We have a spirit. So we are far more above than all these stupid overlords that are trying to lure us into the singularity slash metaverse, which is nothing more than a new prison system and a digital hell system. Yeah, if you want to speak in terms like that. On the other hand, could it just be me and others advocating against the movement being so called paranoid and this is all for the best of mankind? Are we just, between quotation marks, conspiracy nuts after all? Well, conspiracies we see one after another is not a conspiracy at all. So let us first see if Kurzweil has an answer to the important question: when do humans cease to be human? If we regard a human modified with technology as no longer human, where would we draw the dividing line? Is a human with a bionic heart still human? How about someone with a neurological implant? What about two neurological implants? How about someone with 10 nanobots in his brain? How about 500 million nanobots? Should we establish a boundary at 650 million nanobots? Under that, you are still human, and over that, you are already post-human. So where is the line? Where is the line that says, okay, if you're under that line, then you're still human, but if you're passing it, you are post-human. When someone is using rhetoric logic, such as in the above quote, to indirectly promote his or her agenda, we should automatically question the motives. It is not a question of whether we should transplant an artificial heart in order to save a human being. It is all about creating an entirely new slave race based on technology funded by a black budget, which is secret to the public. Of course, it is secret, as well as to most politicians. We have no real idea how much black budget money is funneled or funneled into these projects, but it is a substantial amount. The real motive is not to save a person in need, but to create cyborgs out of an entire species. Hence, his logic goes out of the window. Moreover, a species, Homo sapiens sapiens, is taken off its path of freeing themselves from a locked in frequency band, which we call 3D. So in actuality, you can say that the overlords are also blocking our path of free will to not save ourselves. So they are respectless to the fact that we have free will. And we see it happening because our free will is with the day more and more taken away. Doing so by using spiritual powers, not brain powers, and put under the overpowering influence of a supercomputer that will do its data collection and its thinking for them. The information shared will be whatever is programmed into this computer, and how and what is being shared can still be controlled. Yeah, so all the information that we humans are putting in the cloud can eventually be weaponized against us. And propaganda can be even more effective. This is not contrary to Kurzweil's statement, of course not. Rhetoric logic isn't just common sense. It is not enough to be so-called optimistic. Kurzweil, it is a matter of seeing the future from a so-called, between quotation marks, holistic viewpoint and not with tunnel vision. It is elementary logic once we open our eyes that we see not only potential dangers but a new kind of slave species emerging, which will be under total collective hive control by whomever sits behind the curtain in Oz. To be optimistic about it does not change the fact that power-hungry, warlike beings are behind this agenda. Even if we would be totally unaware of who is operating behind the scenes, it is easy to see that the movement is the most dangerous threat to our spiritual freedom. Exactly. That has ever been developed on this planet, well, in this universe, I would also say. We do not even need to add the alien influence to see that. I cannot help quoting from Kurzweil repeatedly because what he is saying and writing is absolutely stunning and revealing. Here he is again writing more about transhumanism in a very blunt matter and way. Here's a quotation. Quote, some observers refer to this merger as creating a new, between quotation marks, species. But the whole idea of a species is a biological concept. And what we are doing is transcending biology. That is how they see it. Yeah, they think that they are transcending biology. That is how they do word sorcery. We need to see through all the word sorcery that these people are speaking to us. We need to flip everything they say because they are sorcerers. The transformation underlying the singularity is not just another in a long line of steps in biological evolution. We are upending biological evolution. We are upending biological evolution altogether. So what is being said here is that they want to end biological evolution, which means they do not allow us to biologically evolve. They want to control our evolution. And they want to decide what is good for us, and they want to control our evolution by their ideas as they seem fit that we need to evolve into. It can hardly be blacker on white than the above statement, taken from his book. He wants to change the entire concept of what a species is. He wants us to forget the concept of a species necessarily being biological at all. Better said, he wants to forget us to see that we are biologic and that the world we live in is a biological system, is a living library. And now the living library is killed on daily basis, with us included. It is true that our biological bodies are, in a sense, robots or machines as well, re-engineered by Enki and his team to be trapped in the material universe. But in biological bodies, we have the capacity of some free thinking. Not so when humanity has transformed into cyborgs, because then free thinking is out of the window forever. And there is no free thinking anymore because everyone is connected to a hive mind. The Pleiadians have always said that because this is a living library, genetic experimentation has been done and is being done on daily basis on a regular basis in one form or another, and by that, genetic engineering is to some degree acceptable. But what is acceptable? Yeah, ruinification of all species is, in my opinion, not acceptable, especially if you know what the real deal agenda is behind all the creation of cyborg singularity metaverse. I disagree with this because such argument only applies to Enki's logic. This is not his planet and shall never be, to begin with, so he has no right to remodel or transform anything if it were not for us humans continuously giving him our direct or indirect consent. And that is why I say to all these people who are believers and are staying stuck to a so called holy book, which is not holy at all, uh, please throw that book out of the window and start seeing the world for what it truly is, and start dive into informing and educating yourself of what is truly happening. Enki and his cohorts would have long since been out of here and put on trial. No one has the right to claim us. No one has the right to ownership us. No one has the right to have any ownership over our DNA strands. No one. No one has the right to experiment on life forms, no matter if they are humans, animals, or whatever. No one has the right to do so without given consent slash permission for it. If and this is the whole thing. They lure us into all sorts of traps we do not see as a trap, and so we give consent. But if we are truly seeing what is being done, then we are saying, well, wait a minute, but that is not what I want. That is not what I gave permission to. So that is one of the main reasons why the overlords created the voting system, because the voting system is directly connected to all these agendas of singularity, metaverse, and the so-called green agendas, which are not green at all, because all these agendas are based on total destruction of all life here on Earth. So all these agendas are connected to the voting system. And so the overlords created the voting system as a handy tool to make sure that at least a huge amount of humans would participate in their plans and give permission. But these humans do not realize that they also give permission on behalf of the rest of us who do not agree with these agendas. So that is why I'm advocating stop voting, because it's useless. And every time if people have voted, the condition in their country becomes worser and worser and worser. Did voting brought us humans any good? No, it didn't. It made life on Earth far more worser than it should have to be. So this means, in spite of what Enki did, it was and still is our responsibility to make our own decisions. And we choose, albeit under manipulation, to be part of Enki's experiment, set up by a conquering species who needed us for their own selfish purposes. And this is exactly what the whole singularity and metaverse is all about. It's set up for someone else's purposes. Yes? And it's not being created for our benefit. No, it is being created for someone else's selfish purposes. However, I also strongly advocate for total disclosure, not from our governments, but from the overlords themselves, of what their real agenda is. and what happened in the past so many eons ago. If they won't give us full disclosure, and they shall never do, because then the whole scheme will collapse, we will not be able to examine all the options we have as a human soul group. On the other hand, if we would be allowed to look at all the potentials and possibilities, and the majority of the human population still would choose to go for the singularity alternative, I'll rest my case. Dash, humanity would have made their choice and would have to take full responsibility and face then all the consequences of their actions. As it is now, the debate is biased and the information shared is not complete. So we as humans cannot make proper decisions. But I would say the information that you get to know is information in which you can make your decision if you still want to participate in the singularity, yes or no. Thus, there is a need for books such as this one. Kurzweil is also writing, we need a new so-called religion. What he means by this is that we must reach a point where the best in our current religions, such as the so-called Golden Rule, will integrate with contemporary science, i.e., a merger of science and religion should take place. Well, what can go wrong with that one? An interesting point is that this is precisely what the Wingmakers spokesperson James Mahu is discussing on his website wingmakers.com. In order to find the grand portal, a metaphor for when we can become sovereign beings, we need to merge science and religion. I wrote extensively about the Wingmakers in West Penry Papers, the first level of learning, which you can download for free, and you also can have it in book form. Um, so please go to the website links in the text box. You can download all these West Penry Papers, first level of learning to the sixth level of learning. You can download them for free. The following dialogue between Mr. Gates and Kurzweil contain some very disturbing ideas, such as the following. Billy says 10 computers or 1 million computers can become one faster, bigger computer. As humans, we cannot do that. That is their belief, yeah? That is their belief system. Why is this their belief system? Because they darn well know that in actuality, we humans can replace machines if all our DNA strands would work. And that is why they are using this word sorcery to make us falsely believe that we are not able to override machines. We are, but they deliberately, again, have closed down the other 10 strands of DNA in us. So we function on 2 strands of DNA, whom also are diminished in a certain way and to a certain extent. And on top of that, they have placed this double helix that serves as a lock. So this is how we need to understand that they make us falsely believe that we are not capable of overriding machines. We can, if we again would operate on our 12 strands of DNA, we would not need technology at all. As humans, says Billy, we cannot do that. That is his false belief system. We each have a distinct individuality that cannot be bridged, says Billy, according his own false belief system. Then Mr. Ray says, that's just a limitation of biological intelligence. Um, Excuse me, Mr. Ray knows exactly what has been done to us. The unbridgeable distinctness of biological intelligence is not a plus. Here it comes, between quotation marks, silicon intelligence can have it both ways. Computers do not have to pool their intelligence and resources. They can remain, between quotation marks, individuals if they wish. Silicon intelligence can even have it both ways by merging and retaining individuality at the same time. As humans, we try to merge with others also, but our ability to accomplish this is fleeting. Of course, it is fleeting because we do not operate on 12 strands DNA. And if we would operate on 12 strands DNA, we would have already wiped off this Billy and this Kurzweil figures. This is exactly what will tip many humans over toward Kurzweil's so-called goal, a promise of individuality in the midst of the singularity. A false artificial individuality, yeah, a silicon-based individuality. In the beginning, post-humans may very well be allowed to keep their individuality, yeah, until the moment that enough have been lured into, and then they shut down that also, and all of a sudden, from one moment unto the other moment, there is no individualism anymore. But this is why it is so important for us humans to be aware of our real history and not the false history we learn in school. No, because the school system is nothing more than a loosh factory. What is loosh? That is human soul energy that the overlords are stealing on daily basis from us in many ways, shapes, and forms. One of the ways is the constant dramatization put out over the entire world. Another is the constant traumatization that is being spread all over the world. They are constantly traumatizing humans by triggering traumatic events in humans. That's why they did the false assassination on this Trump guy to trigger the moment in history of the assassination of Kennedy, because that was an collective trauma. And this is how they traumatize the humans on daily basis. Then we have all these psyops that they also use to traumatize the human species all over the place and all over the world. So we need to wake up to their tricks and to their games and to their mechanics and dynamics of their sorcery game. If we do not know our past, it is bound to reoccur, which is exactly what is about to happen. We are in the repeat of Atlantis, because this whole singularity was also at play in Atlantis era. Even if some individual thinking may be allowed, it will be very limited, and soon enough only objective, calculative thinking will be possible. That is why they are trying to shut our mouths through censorship. With AI invested in their brain and the rest of their body, the ability to experience real emotions will be very restricted. Better said, then someone is pushing a button in the hive system, and all of a sudden everyone is tearing tears. Yeah. So the primordial womankind, the Namlu'u, as Wes Penry is calling the original human, uh, were trusting toward others and did not expect being deceived by the overlords. This, lovely sisters and brothers, is one of the main reasons why we humans, uh, whom are still have humanness, original humanness in us, still are so naive and are still have difficulties in believing that there are beings amongst us that can do harm and have no respect for our free will, have no respect for our sovereignty. There are still humans in the human group that are carrying the original humanness in them, what Wes Penry calls the Namlu'u. And these Namlu'us, because of what happened to our home planet Tiamat. Tiamat got splintered up in many pieces due to a cosmic war, and many of the original humans were in such a state of shock that they were for 1,000 years in a deep, deep shock. And when each one of us started to wake up from this shock, we then were hijacked by Enki. So those among us who remember things, they are in actuality people whom are remembering life on Tiamat, and who remember that the earth should not be as it is now. We are indeed living on a leftover piece, so to say, of Tiamat. And in actuality, you can say this is still Tiamat. And we can know this due to all the petrification that we discover, the petrifying trees, humans, mushrooms, animals, and other life forms that have become petrified during this cosmic war. And so, people, especially in the area of Utah and Wyoming, you can see a lot of petrified beings, such as trees, mushrooms, humans, animals. Not all rocks in that area are rocks. And there are many places in the world where you can see that the rock formation is not just a rock formation, but a petrified being. And this is the proof of the existence of Tiamat and this cosmic war that has taken place. So we are trusting toward others and did not expect being deceived by the overlords, and over the eons we haven't learned much. We still generally trust, between quotation marks, authorities who do not have any of our interests in mind. They don't care about us. So that is why they are bringing us in this constant state of sickness and do everything to have us poisoned on daily basis. So they can instigate their solutions. And of course, their solutions are not solutions at all. You may have asked yourself how the Namlu'u could be trapped in human bodies that were created by their oppressors. So again, you may have asked yourself how the Namlu'u could be trapped in human bodies that were created by their oppressors who had chased Namlu'u's creators away and trapped the primordial womankind in a locked-in dimension. Although a long time had passed between the war of the Titans and the moment the Namlu'u were trapped in Enki's bodies, shouldn't the Namlu'u still have been suspicious enough not to trust the overlords? I do not have the information about what exactly made the Namlu'u cooperate with the overlords, but I can imagine that Enki disguised himself as somebody else. This tactic is being used in MK Ultra too, where the abuser is also the loving one. One moment they love their objects and pretend that they are caring about their objects, and so the human children whom are exposed to all sorts of cruelty in these MK Ultra programming, but also in SRA, satanic ritual abuse, um, these children get confused. Why? Because one moment their abusers are nice and friendly, and the second moment they, the abusers, are like monsters and they do all sorts of cruelty to the children. Yeah. And this is exactly how Enki also has portrayed himself toward the original humans known as Namlu'u. So this made us confused also. So this is how all this game trick is. Yeah. So he disguised himself as somebody else, one time as a nice being and another time as a very cruel being. Look at malignant narcissists. They have the same one time, and by the way, all narcissists um, have this. One time they can act very nice and concerning, and another time they are very harsh and cruel. Yeah, these are the two faces. Those who have read the West Benry papers know that Enki is an expert in shape-shifting. He might even have disguised himself as Queen Nin, deceiving womankind by presenting a way out of the trap if they took these new bodies. We know Enki can be very convincing, even to an extent that he can deceive his own people. Something as drastic as that must have happened for the Namlu'us to fall into this trap that we are still sitting in. So I now go to the next topic, how the rich buy immortality. Yeah, how the super rich want to buy immortality. From what I have observed, children of the super rich families develop in three different stages. The first stage is that of excitement and a willingness to buy the whole world. The person buys ultra expensive cars, houses, vacation homes, palaces, yachts, and perhaps ships and islands. Moreover, he or she will probably travel around the world, make friends with the super rich in other parts of the world, and enjoy him or herself by arranging parties, going to other rich people's parties, experiencing as much sex as he or she can handle, and take so-called party drugs such as cocaine and heroin. As time goes by, all this life in so-called abundance, which is fake abundance and fake luxury, either gets the best of the person and the body begins to decline, or he or she gets bored with life after having exhausted all of the options that used to make life exciting. What is there left to do when the party life and all the fake luxury do not appeal as much as they used to? Of course, buying an odd commodity that only this person would have in his or her possession, thus making it possible to brag in front of the rest of the bored jet set, is one thing such a person could do. Then hopefully his or her rich friends would get impressed and make this person with this strange commodity the big subject in discussions. The bored jet setter's big ego would be pleased again for a while. When this gets old, too, the person in question would probably begin to think about aging and dying. Normally, he or she does not want to die, and it doesn't matter so much whether he or she believes in an afterlife, including reincarnation. Regardless of how bored the person might be, he or she does not want to lose their life of luxury. What if this person reincarnates into a middle class family next time? Oh my gosh, God forbid. Or perhaps life ends completely at the very moment of death. Horrible thoughts. Hence, when a way of obtaining immortality becomes available, the person jumps on it. For those who want to read more about this, the London-based newspaper The Evening Standard recently ran an article about how London's super-rich will potentially reach serious life extension with quite a lot of help from cutting-edge scientists. At the end of the DNA are caps called telomeres. Dr. Mark Bonar, a cellular aging specialist, compares the telomeres to the plastic at the end of shoestrings. They prevent the end from fraying. In fact, the longer the telomeres, the longer the lifespan of a person will potentially be. A product called TA65 has now been patented and has been around in the US since 2011. TA65 allegedly has the ability to rebuild the telomeres and make them longer, pausing the aging process. When tested on fruit flies, an insect commonly used in genetic experimentation, fruit flies and humans apparently have something in common. It doubled the lifespan of the insect, and when tested on mice for cancer, the cancer rate fell by approximately 30%. So TA65 is not an operational procedure, it is being prescribed in capsules or as a cream. Moreover, Dr. Bonar says the other factors of the human body could also be considered for improvement. An array of blood tests are being performed, and wherever improvements in prolonging life seem to be necessary, this area or these areas of the body are addressed. Also, nutrition is taken into consideration to create a balance when needed. Growth hormones are used. An annual plan costs from $10,000 nowadays $14,500 at least, and end up. Upon that, there are most likely additional costs depending on what needs to be done. This is perhaps too expensive for the average Joe from the corner, at least thus far. For the super rich, however, it is a spare change and cheap. At the time when the Evening Standard article hit the press, Dr. Bonar was treating a foreign royal family. They told him, "I am running my empire. Your job is to keep me healthy." Is there any wonder that David Rockefeller is 101 years old and that this Bush guy is 91 years old? And mind you, this book is from 2016. And Henry Kissinger, I think he's still alive. Queen Elizabeth is 19, and also, okay, she died recently, but on a quiet age for a being like that, and counting. And they are still actively running empires or staying involved in world of politics, including traveling and attending meetings. Assuming some of these dinosaurs are humans and not AI or clones, they may have had a visit or two from scientists such as Dr. Bonar. Dr. Bonar may not be the only person using these kinds of life extending techniques, but he is not without controversy either. On December 10th, 2015, the British news media, the Mirror.co.uk, posted an article on Dr. Bonar, which revealed that he was accused of having mistreated a 46-year-old woman with cervical cancer, not telling her she was terminally ill. As a result, the woman died, and Dr. Bonar was, when um, the Mirror.co.uk ran the article, in hearings about the case, and of course he denies all misconduct. Morals and ethics are difficult, if not impossible, to find in this field of practice, as well as in many other administrators dash based practices. So this is how the super rich are using technology, and I know that they are using very advanced technologies to keep themselves alive. And then I go to the last one. I need to look this up. Wait a minute. That is artificial consciousness is already here. And yeah, this is a short piece of text. So artificial consciousness. On October 27, 2015, the newspaper, The Telegraph.co.uk, ran an article called "Family Members Could Be Kept Alive Forever Using Social Media History dash Dead family members could be brought back to life using their history on social media to power virtual avatars." Simon McKeown is a reader in animation and post-production at Teesside University. One of his projects is to reawaken our dead relatives in the future by creating, between quotation marks, synthetic digital life. It is incredible what they are doing while we are distracting ourselves by so-called news. Yeah. So in the meantime, behind closed doors, they are experimenting with all sorts of technology and synthetics and whatever they have, and doing all sorts of experimentations and finding out things of which our mind hardly can imagine that they can do this. So, by creating synthetic digital life with something called photogrammetry, using this technique, scientists will be able to create an accurate reconstruct of a virtual 3D shape of a human being from existing photographs and video. Wow. Computer voice synthesis will take account local and regional accents to deliver a more accurate representation of what they sounded like. People would then be able to construct a reality where they never had to say goodbye to those they love. McKeown continues with the quote, using emotion dash sensitive human dash computer interaction, our artificially intelligent participants continue to acquire ongoing knowledge long after their death. They evolve digitally and do not die. Well, this brings me huge concerns, and so it should do for many of us. And I know there is already an organization called Colossal in America that is, and here it comes, so-called resurrecting through CRISPR-Cas technologies and other technologies, um, animal species that are in actuality for eons gone of this world, such as the saber-toothed tiger and the mammoth. They want to resurrect these beings again. Uh, we need to wake up, really, and see really what is going on in this world. As soon as this technique is implemented, the real the real human consciousness will more and more be replaced with artificial consciousness. Wow. As soon as this technique is implemented, the real human consciousness will be more and more replaced with artificial consciousness. As we can see, there are many slightly different outlooks into the future by those who have the technological means to solidify their visions. But all of them have one thing in common. They want to replace us Homo sapiens sapiens as the center of creation and evolution. To the uninformed, the information McKeown just gave us is meant to trigger hope in the readers, wishfully making them think that they can live with their loved ones forever in a digital but very real looking, appearing synthetic version of reality. And this is also how they trick the human soul when it dies to go into this false tunnel of light, false light. It's all based on holograms. This being the next best thing to having the original person there in the first place. Also, it gets people used to the idea that once the super brain computer is in place, nothing that was once programmed into its memory bank will ever be erased. Everything a person ever thought and learned will be stored, dash including their entire personality. Thus, it is therefore a given that even if an accident happened to a cyborg, dash an um, accident bad enough to destroy it, forcing the soul, mind, and spirit body finally to leave the cyborg trap, and this is all between brackets, dash, that person's mind is still cloned into the super brain computer, is forever activated and and can be enlivened. We also need to keep in mind here that the overlords want us to merge our minds in virtual realities that the collective mind of post-human is creating continuously. And I would add, with not so little help from the overlords and the emissaries. As strange as it may seem to some readers, I am convinced that the average scientist who works on bringing about the singularity has humankind's best interests in mind. However, those higher up the ladder certainly do not. And these shady people know much more than we do about consciousness and metaphysics, and they can successfully use it against us. And with this said, I have come to the end of reading the mentioned topics for today. And I think, to be honest, these topics are literally food for your spirit and consciousness and soul to ponder upon and to think about. Please do so and also share videos like this with as many as possible brothers and sisters. We need to inform ourselves, we need to educate ourselves because the education system lacks this tremendously. I want to thank you also for tuning in today through Facebook, through Rumble, through YouTube. Thank you so much for spending your time in listening along. And thank you for being a part of this online book reading. And know that I do this because I care about my fellow brothers and sisters. And I truly think it is important that we do know far more about all this. There is already a lot in the open about this singularity, but each person presents it in a different way. And I think it's handy to um, to yeah discover the many angles from which this singularity information is being presented to us. Because um, all informational source has its own perception in things and also its own approach. All right. Again, thank you so much. And I wish you all a beautiful, joyful day filled with a lot of love, wisdom, truth, joy, and also revelations, all coming from your own spirit. And I would say go start communicating with your own spirit and about all these topics, and see what your own spirit has to tell to you about the singularity, about the metaverse, about technologies, and learn from it. Um, as last, we are going to listen to a short piece of music, um, which is titled Echoes from the Mountains, and it's been given to us by Ben Sound. Thank you so much and see you next time.